the afternoon, and
Does your group have a name or no?
no, we don't have a name. We're just people that do it every Sunday. And
Yeah, no, tell him.
we've been doing it for years. We've been doing it for years.
He needs to know about that.
Yeah.
Because or at least maybe he knew about it and I just didn't come up, but.
Okay, Vicki, Facebook's ready when you're
Okay,
ready.
okay, and we're ready, right?
Yeah, I guess we're ready.
I think so.
Okay, here, I'm just
Okay,
gonna
you have a
one-
silver switch that says on the air.
I'm just going to wait till I have one little sip of water. Okay. Okay. Okie dokie. So, do you want me to mention citizen action or not really?
Either way is fine.
Okay. What's your position there with them?
Community organizer.
Community organizer. Okay, so we're
Flip
ready.
the switch that says on the air. Is the light on?
Yes, it is.
Put the clapper in front of your face, and when you hit the clapper, you're on the air.
Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being recorded here at Think Twice Radio in the home of the future, also the home of our friend and producer, Richard Wicca. Thank you, Richard. And thank you to our friends at Buff State, WBNY, Buffalo's original alternative radio station. We are very privileged to be airing at 91.3 FM WBNY. Thank you. We thank you for that. And we also, when I think of thankfulness, we think of our indigenous friends and the way they start every event out with the first words to be said, which are in gratitude, which are a Thanksgiving address that thanks Mother Earth for giving us everything we need, for being the ground of our dwelling, for the living waters, the waters of life that keep us alive, for all the plants, the medicinals and the food plants, for the creatures of all kinds, the swimming and four-leggeds and the flying creatures, and for the wonderful trees that keep us alive and give us so much beauty, and air, and for all the different elements and the thunder beings and so much around us, and of course, above all, for the Creator and for that good mind that has been given us that we need to exercise so that we can follow the original instructions so that life can continue in this creation. So we remember them, and we remember, too, that we are here on stolen Haudenosaunee land, stolen Seneca land, most of us right here in the Think Twice Radio. We're on Seneca land, and that is something that we need to write and remember and rectify. And and I'm very grateful, too, to have some very special guests here on the topic of Latin American solidarity. And solidarity so needed, so important, and so vital to all of our efforts. So first I'll say I'm Vicki Ross. I'm the Western New York Peace Center board co-chair now, and community coordinator. And I'm very thrilled to have two very special guests. So I'll just, in the traditional Haudenosaunee way, I'll go counterclockwise. We have Kelly Camacho. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Vicki.
So, Kelly, I've been privileged to actually have, I think we called it the Western New York Peace Center Environmental Justice Co-Expedition, along with Push.
Yes.
That you helped us organize to go out to Minnesota.
It's been a while. It's been a bit. We got to get back out there.
Yes, to stop line 3, which, of course, they pushed it on through. But we still get some victories.
Yeah.
And certainly you are getting some victories just by helping out so much at Buen Amigo, which we're very grateful to our friends at Buen Amigo, means the good friend.
Yes, absolutely. Would you like me to explain a little bit more about Buen Amigo, or do we want to do more?
Well, in just a minute, I'll just say, and plus, of course, you are a community organizer at Citizen Action, for which we're very grateful to.
Thank you.
And then not to miss introducing the famous Tom Potts, Dr. Tom Potts. Tom, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Vicki.
Well, we're so grateful, and I want to say we're talking about bright spots. So we had a very big bright spot in our week in this tremendously difficult time that we're having here in Buffalo, and indeed, I'd say even in the whole country, but especially right here. But we did have a special recognition of 35 years of your dental clinic, or now the Mayan Dental Clinic in Chiapas.
Yes, that's right. It's a wonderful event. We had music. We had a little wine and cheese and lots of wonderful people there.
Yes.
It was a great event.
Yes, of which especially you and all the wonderful. We have some live streams that should be on the website for anybody who wants to see them. But we'll get some more into that.
Sure.
But before we do, then I think we'll just move into. We always like to do this values piece. So thinking about what are the values that we want to uphold in this conversation or in this issue of Latin American solidarity. So again, we'll just go counterclockwise. So.
Yeah, I think racial identity respect is really important to me, especially just being in a conversation where obviously, like, I am a brown person at a table with white presenting people. So I just want to feel like, my experiences are respected and validated. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and a doctor. We got a doctor in the house, DR period.
Yeah, DDS, I should mention too, of course, because for dental clinic, right? He's dental doctor. Thank you. So that is so important. Yes, racial identity and real respect. Real respect. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kelly.
Well, I think if you're working with people from Latin America or other cultures in any setting like that, you really have to be culturally sensitive to what's going on and working within the cultural bounds of the people that you're with, not pushing your cultural values onto somebody else because it doesn't work. You have to really find out what their cultural values are and work with them on that plane. It's really important.
Right. Absolutely. And I'd say really both of those things are so critical to solidarity. So, I mean, oftentimes I say truth and love, but I want to really, and I think truth and love are needed. They're always needed. When are they not needed? But I want to give special attention to that idea of solidarity, and really what both of you said really is just a beautiful way of explaining solidarity with that respect and that not imposing,
That's
but
right.
rather learning attitude.
Not being paternalistic. That's the
Right.
really, really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So key, especially for white people in the room. Right?
Yes.
I'm going to say.
Yes,
right?
we've been oppressing people for about 500 years at least, and we need to really get out of that mindset.
Yes. Hal.
I mean,
And it's
music to
liberating.
my ears. Thank you.
It will liberate us.
Yes.
It's not just liberating the people that
No.
need to be liberated. We need to be liberated.
Right. Liberated from our own aggression.
That's right.
and
From our aggressive history. Our history is just filled with so much aggression, starting with Columbus and all the
Right.
conquistadors. And man, it's we need a real reorientation of our
Right.
head.
Right. They call it a reset, right?
Yeah,
Hit the
reset.
button.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've started with that. So why don't we start with the event and the work that you have done, Tom? As first of all, I want to introduce the Latin American Solidarity Committee, which this is about Latin American solidarity, which Buen Amigo is absolutely couldn't be more a part of. And actually, they've worked together. Those two.
Oh
the two
yes.
groups,
We have many events at the store, at the storefront.
Right, especially the Christmas party there is a very regular occurrence. But tell us how did it come about? 35 years of the dental clinic, and why did you have this celebration of 35 years?
Well, it all started in 1987. I was on a sabbatical from the University of Buffalo, and I was in central Mexico. And I kept getting a phone call from an anthropologist that was in Chiapas, which is far southern Mexico. And she kept calling me. I didn't really want to go to southern Mexico, but she kept calling me and persisting and cajoling me and, basically browbeating me a little bit, but gently browbeating me.
Gently.
Until I promised to go to Chiapas and work in a dental clinic there. And I went down, and all we did initially was just relieving pain and suffering. It was a mission of mercy, so to speak. All we did was extract teeth and treat infections and that kind of thing. But I was fascinated by the culture, and the people were wonderful, and we got a lot done, and I have been going back every year since. So it was a wonderful experience. And after those first few years of just doing basically, the most fundamental treatment of extracting teeth and that kind of, we tried to change the clinic. It was an abandoned government clinic, basically. We tried to change it so that we were doing more very restorative and preventive and other kinds of treatments, so we could get away from just showing the people that there was other treatment besides just taking teeth out, because the people weren't even aware of the other possibilities. Right. So we expanded it, and progressively over the years, it's been more and more fillings, more and more fluoride treatments, more and more cleanings, until I was about 75%. And there's still another 25% of treating infections and extractions.
Sure.
But we've really turned it around, and we've also got the Mayan community involved in that we have set up a committee. I would say a Mayan dentist that I've worked with for 35 years, Pascual. He has helped us and set up a committee in the village of Mayans, and they now administer the clinic, and they pay the dentist that works there and the hygienist. I mean, they maintain the clinic, and they meet regularly and do all the financial operations.
Wow.
So basically, it's gone from this kind of a mission of mercy to a clinic that is run by Mayans. We now have a new we funded a young Mayan dentist to go through dental school in the University of Chiapas. He just finished up his residency in February, and he went to work in our clinic.
Wow.
So now we have a Mayan board that runs a clinic. We have a Mayan dentist working in the clinic, and a Mayan assistant working with him, and they all speak the Mayan language, which is Tzotzil Mayan. So they are a big hit in the community because they're now kind of even a model of how to operate a health facility and keep it going, and we've kept it going for 35 years. The event Monday night, though, was also to raise resources and help expand the services at that clinic. So it's very, very hopeful. And once you get to be my age, I'm 76, you got to think, well, you're not going to live forever.
Right.
And I think we've set it up so that the Mayans will just take control and take it away once I'm gone. And it's really a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Well, it's a beautiful example of giving people the opportunity, and just making things, feasible for people. So many times people really don't get a chance to do. They don't have the resources to start with, or, it's not even on the horizon. So, what you've done and what you've done by, respecting that balance between the traditional and the customs and the needs and the will of the people, and then balancing that with what, you could help or offer or, or see as other ways to realize those opportunities, to give, help share those opportunities.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Well, now we have like I said, we have the Mayan dentist and the board, and the dentist that's worked with me for 35 years, he's still there, he's still helping, and the community has been empowered by it, and the community is excited by it.
I bet they're starting to look at other kinds of healthful
absolutely.
ways of blending the traditional and the and the new.
Well, the way it is right now, the Mayans run the clinic, and they consult me, and I advise them, but I do not control. I have in no way control the board that controls the clinic. They don't even invite me to their meetings.
Right.
Which is as it should be.
Right. Sure.
I do
That's
bring
great.
down some resources, and they administer the resources.
Sure.
But they are their own group, and sometimes they take my advice, and sometimes they don't.
Right. No, they know what
As
they
it
need.
should be.
Right. Well, so when we think about, so you're still collecting money for that, yes?
Yes, yeah. We're still would like to. If anybody listening would like to help the clinic, they can donate to the Western New York Peace Center.
Right.
You can go online, just look up Western New York Peace Center, and you can see what they're doing.
Right. That just WNYPC.org, and then you would just flag, dental clinic.
Yeah.
Would be enough.
Put that on the item line. Put dental clinic if you write a check.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one wonderful example. And another example of Latin American solidarity? Kelly, if you want to talk a little bit about El Buen Amigo and the history or the actuality and the new project and everything?
Yeah, so I've been volunteering at El Buen Amigo for a couple months now. So I guess I'll start with what El Buen Amigo is for anybody who doesn't know.
Sure.
So El Buen Amigo is at 114 Elmwood. It is this beautiful little orange building. It's a historic building in Buffalo.
Right.
And it was bought by Santiago Masferer. And he was previously a political prisoner in Chile.
Right.
And the whole reason that he was a political prisoner was that he was living in Chile the town was actually named Santiago as well, which is funny. I chuckled about it when I read his background. So there was a food shortage, and so they gave this like village of people like one cow, and that's what everybody had to share. And so Santiago, who didn't have a family that was like in desperate need at the time, was just like, well, why don't we prioritize feeding families with small children first? Right. And everybody voted and agreed that sounded like a great idea. That sounded fair and reasonable. And then next thing you know, Santiago was in prison for a socialist plot.
Oh my God.
Yes, and so Santiago is actually someone who is in great spirits when you talk to him about it. Like, he is really genuinely someone who the experience could not break that man, and he just has such a vibrance about him when he makes comedy out of some of these harsh experiences that he's had.
Yes.
And so he ended up coming to Buffalo. He remembered that someone had told him that somewhere with a B in the United States there were these Chilean settlers, and he was going to go join his community, but he couldn't remember what it was called. And so for some reason Buffalo stood out to him. And so when Ted Kennedy was able to help him get out of prison and bring him over to the United States, he settled down in Buffalo, and he opened El Buen Amigo. And the whole point of El Buen Amigo was to buy Latin American crafts from actual folks in Latin America, sell them at a fair price, and then send profits back home, so this way folks are able to sustain their family, and we can work on breaking the poverty cycle. And he's been doing that for about 45 years now. And so this Saturday, which by the time this airs on the radio will have already passed, but for folks listening on Facebook, we are having a fundraiser on Saturday, May 28th from 6 to 10. It's going to it's going to benefit El Buen Amigo, but we are going to be hosting it at El Bate, which is 175 Reno Street, which is the Puerto Rican Center. Love it. Love to see it. And so what we're working on right now is we're actually working on putting murals on the building at El Buen Amigo.
Right.
So first what we have to do is we are fixing up the building. The building is a historic building, so it's very old. The back is kind of open and exposed on the top floor. So we take volunteers of all kinds. Like if you got trades experience, we love someone who's good with a hammer and nails. Like we could really use the help. But we need to make it structurally sound enough that we can move forward with putting the murals on the building.
That's the first thing. Right.
That's the first step. The second step is that we would love to put two types of murals on the building. So the first kind of mural, we really want to be honoring like the women of the movement. I think something that really comes up in a lot of cultures of color, and even white culture as well, is the patriarchy and just the blatant disrespect that some of these more masculine cultures have towards women,
Right.
where we're able to be raised by our mothers, but we don't respect the women that we marry. And I know that in my household, like, I was very much not supposed to be this independent force. And so I actually tell people all the time that the reason I'm comfortable as an organizer is because standing up to my very masculine, macho, controlling dad, I can stand up to absolutely anyone else.
A German Jew is the same thing. But anyway, no difference there.
Exactly. And so Santiago is very aware of kind of how women in the movement have typically been shortchanged. And so he really wants to honor the women, the mothers, the sisters, the lovers of our movement. And then on the other mural, we'd really like to tell the story of all of our joint experiences of human rights abuses that have gone on in our communities, from, colonization of the indigenous populations here, to even what happened at Jefferson Tops. Like, these are all acts of hate and terror that have a joint history. They all come from the same place, which is the system of white supremacy.
Right. And people have suffered. Indigenous people have suffered so much. People of color have suffered so much under the white supremacy.
Absolutely. And I think what's significant about where these murals are going to be is that it's going to be in the Allentown district, which is a very rapidly white neighborhood. It's turning white. It has been white for a couple years. And so I think it's really significant that El Buen Amigo, that is this historic building that is still there, can tell this history on its buildings in this neighborhood where it will spark a conversation.
Right. And actually, it's on Elmwood. Just a couple of stores from Allentown, from Allen Street.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
And they call it Josh Allen Street, Josh Allentown, which nothing against Josh, but, and again, not to be like, too, but let us say that examining what we need to in our cultures and respecting what we need to in our cultures is so important. And so you're right that is a very particularly good place for reminders, so that we do have those reminders and have them out where people will see.
Absolutely.
It's a very visible side of the building, right next to Elmwood Charter School.
Yes.
Right? And the youth theater.
The youth theater, yep.
And the youth theater is right there. But you can see both of the sides of the building so well. So it will really... And by the way, I want to give this plug. What wonderful things he has in the store.
I spend money there every time I go.
Of course you do. I sometimes I try to stay out of there because if I go in there, I just see too many things I want. But anyway, it's very beautiful of all kinds. I mean, there's clothes, there's jewelry, there's art, there's all kinds of practical things that can be, I mean, if it's dishes or, but one of my favorites are the little,
The alpaca sweaters.
No, although they're very much fun. But, I really have a special thing for that little nativity scenes.
Oh, the little nativity scenes.
Yeah, because there's all different kinds. Like sometimes there's some of them that are in a gourd, and then when you open it up, I've bought so many there, and I give them away, and and especially at Christmas.
Yeah,
we have the Christmas party there.
Sure.
But I mean the jewelry, the beautiful, the wonderful material.
And it's all at a really reasonable price. Yes. Santiago is definitely someone who, they're all such reasonable prices. He'll ask me how much something should cost, and I'm like, I think you're really lowballing people here. Like, you could get some more money.
No, he could get some more. Oh, he could definitely get some more.
We even got some beautiful, this week we got beautiful little baby carriers and different baby wraps for folks to hold their babies in with just these beautiful, vibrant patterns. And I'm like, Santiago, you could easily sell these for $100, but no, he's like $40, $50. That's
right.
all.
He's so reasonable because he's really, El Buen Amigo, the good friend.
Good friend.
And that is really the way there's a different way of doing things for sustainability, and it's not make the most money you can.
Right.
And I mean, I'm going to say that the way you have done things is obviously, it's not even about money. It's about giving.
Oh
and
no!
sharing.
Well, if you really want to make a lot of money, then you're doing something else. It's
Right.
if solidarity is not making lots of money. Although,
No, right.
although you could do solidarity and make some money, but that's not the objective.
Right.
That's strictly secondary.
Right, and that's a perfect example of Santiago. So, he has to make a living,
Right.
and also the people he's buying from, they need
Yeah, they need
sustenance.
sustenance.
Right.
Yeah.
So it is about making some money, but it's about fairness. It's about
Right.
a fairness.
Yeah,
you
fair
know,
exchange.
Fair exchange, exactly, and that whole concept of fair exchange, that people should get paid fairly for their labor. And that's one of the things. And there's so many. I think about the Mayan Weaving Collective, of which I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. That they, that's something that people can Google, and they can even buy, some of those, or go and right in El Buen Amigo. There
Yep.
are so many examples right there
So
that are
many
right there, hanging there on the
Yeah.
on the
It's everywhere. That store is full of
And
just
it's
amazing
full.
little treasures.
They also have wonderful little boxes that you could lose either as jewelry boxes or
Sure.
as spice boxes, or
Right.
they're just a
Oh, and
whole
the jewelry.
many
is-
different designs.
I love the jewelry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go
Oh, and instruments.
Yep.
Different instruments too.
instruments, clothes, just everything you can imagine.
Art, visual art, paintings and other,
And when you're
backpacks.
there, you can also talk to Santiago many
Sure,
times, and he's
sure.
a wonderful guy to talk to.
yes,
He can give you the history of what's been going on in Chile and other parts of Latin America, and
Right.
very, very knowledgeable guy.
So here's another thing. So there is also LACA. Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the Latin American Cultural Association is kind of the nonprofit that works with the El Buen Amigo storefront.
Right.
And so they do lots of different types of cultural events, and they do Spanish classes. Santiago's still trying to poach me for the Spanish class, which I just have to make time to go.
To be in it, or
Yes, to be
lead
in it. So I am not a fluent Spanish
when you're
speaker.
going, maybe I'll go.
Yeah, I'd love
Yeah.
that. And it's
We should do
incredible.
that.
Something I love about Santiago is that as someone who is Puerto Rican, but I don't speak fluent Spanish, I definitely feel like sometimes I lack a cultural home. And with Santiago, I actually wrote about it in one of my blog posts where I talked about how Santiago was really my first experience with a Latino that didn't judge me for not speaking Spanish. Like his first reaction wasn't judgment. It was, well, I'll talk to you slowly and we can figure this out, and really starting to pull me into trying to speak Spanish with him. And it was a wonderful experience.
También.
Exactly. It's nice to be in an environment where you feel like you genuinely are cared about. And that's what's so amazing about Santiago. And he fully jokes about it. He's like, my wife tells me I'm not married to my wife. I am married to El Buen Amigo.
Well, and now he has at least one daughter.
Yes.
So that's another reason why he knows the importance of women.
Exactly.
Men who have a daughter, I think it gives them a new insight into, what does my daughter need? What can she do? Yeah. So he's
powerful.
Yeah, it is powerful. And I think that's wonderful that he wants to do one on the women.
Yes.
And the women and the it is very matriarchal in a lot of the indigenous communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very patriarchal where I am in
San Cristobal.
Yeah.
And Chiapas.
In that area in Chiapas.
In
Yeah.
Chiapas, yeah. Huh. Well, maybe I'm thinking too much about that. My experience, the one I'm really more steeped in is the Haudenosaunee, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the
right.
Haudenosaunee are very matriarchal. Although with them, it's even though they're matriarchal, it's more complicated than just that. Different
Sure.
roles. There's
Yeah.
different roles.
Yeah.
But-
And I'm sure that European colonization has had some influence on some of the cultures that are existing today.
for
So,
For sure.
Right, that's another thing. We brought a lot of baggage over with us.
Yeah.
Those of us who,
Well, Spain
came over.
controlled Mexico for 300 years,
Right.
1520 to
Right.
1820. So,
Right.
It's a huge history of oppression.
Well, when I think of Mexico, I can't help thinking of Bill Jungle's hat. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
He has a red hat, and what does it say? It says, make Texas Mexico again.
Yep.
So, I mean, we did a lot of dirty work over there, too. So that's all I can say. Yeah.
Oh, I get it. I am Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is just like a modern colony, which is
Right.
weird to see because a lot of people rocked out to like Hamilton for a while, which was all about getting freedom from being a colony. Meanwhile, the United States still has Puerto Rico
Right.
with limited rights, and we only became citizens when they needed to draft people. We
Right.
became citizens
and you
a
still
month.
don't have representation.
Right, exactly.
So it's outrageous. Oh, it's so outrageous.
Well,
And-
a bill was just submitted, according to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How's her name?
AOC?
AOC.
Right.
Use the acronyms quicker.
to give Puerto Rico its independent status.
I would love to see that.
Well, we need to foment, support for that.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
For sure.
Oh, it's been way too long.
But she said it was bipartisan, which I'm surprised. But if
she says
maybe
so.
there's some hope.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Probably the Republicans have other motives.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe. But even so.
Yeah,
You know,
even
it's always
so,
the right time to do the right thing.
You gotta seize the moment.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important when we talk about like the history of social justice movements to also kind of talk about it the way you talked about the dental work, where it's like a lot of it right off the bat is treating infection. And so racism is an infection. Like
Yes.
we ended slavery in the United States, but we haven't yet treated the infection that still remains.
Right.
And so that's why I think I was very motivated to come on the show, was to talk about how as a Latina, I feel very strongly that like Black Lives Matter. And that's a conversation that I don't feel like enough people are having right now in regards to what happened on Jefferson at Tops. And I don't mean the Black community. The Black community is obviously very well versed in what's going on, but making sure that allies are stepping up for these people of color. So I grew up on the east side, but I'm a little bit more 14215 than Jefferson Ave. But I've been to that Tops, and I know people that live in that area. And what happened in our community shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. We should have had more grocery stores available that have healthy options that are low cost for people of color in that community to shop in. It was interesting because I went to the Women's March the day before the shooting. Well, I had heard about the shooting.
Well, one of the women's marches.
One of the women's marches. There were several,
Right.
yes.
There were several. Right.
And I wasn't excited about what I saw. Like a lot of the white feminists that were at the Women's March couldn't be at, the solidarity events for what happened at Jefferson on Tops. And while there were some, that was amazing, but there weren't enough. And so when we talk about things like Black Lives Matter, all of these movements are very intersectional. So we need to see the white feminists stepping up for the women of color. A lot of who were targeted at the Tops were our caregivers, which are typically low-income women. Like,
Right.
we make it possible for the working class to actually go to work, And so it frustrates me that our women, our mothers, our sisters, the people who care about us, we're targeted, and we're not seeing this intersectional conversation happening. We're hearing it from the Black community. The Black community is stepping up and saying, this is what we need, this is what we have to have happen. And we're seeing a lot of food solidarity, but I don't think we're seeing as many intersectional conversations as I'd like to see.
Well, I want to say from the Western, and I think I can say this on behalf of the Western New York Peace Center, we couldn't be more devastated, serious about the intersectionality, serious about standing against the racism, the violence, the patriarchy, for that matter, and the white supremacy. And I want to use myself as an example of I did not step aside for no reason.
Right.
I stepped aside, so we now have Black leadership. We have Deidre Emel, who is a long-standing activist in the community, and this is back to sort of what you're talking about, and actually the roots that go back to the Latin American Solidarity Committee of the Western New York Peace Center, which is the oldest of the too many task forces that we have. But anyway, it's the only one that's not called a task force. But anyway, that Maxine and Sarah, who is a prime member of that she was actually Deidre's teacher or guidance counselor when she was in high school. And Deidre actually went to performing arts, and she got suspended for wearing her head wrap. And she was like absolutely going to wear her head wrap because it is part of her cultural heritage. And that is what she's going to do. That's Deidre. And that is Deidre as a teenager. So now she's a grown woman, a mom, a wonderful longtime activist. She actually worked for MAP for quite a while with sort of like micro lending kind of a thing, helping businesses, small businesses getting started. So that's her history. And then she also is she with her husband, they have this, the Congregation of Israel, the Knesset of Jesus, which they also are operating, and, it's a congregation, a house of worship that she's doing, as well as homeschooling, as well as being the director at the Western New York Peace Center, which was always a 20-hour-a-week job, and it's still a 20-hour-a-week job. But the thing is, now she only has 20 hours a week to do it, whereas I had like all my waking time.
Yeah.
Except for what's claimed by my animals. But but anyway, I think that the Western New York Peace Center, that's part of what we want to do. And it's more about sort of how and when and what to do. Because we really always bring it in and when we had, because there were a couple of women's marches. First, women's right to choose is under assault, right? There were 2 marches about that, both of them in Niagara Square. And we had planned a women's march along the same lines as we've done the women's march for the past, since it started with Trump, right? The first women's march, the day after the inauguration, and we had between 3,600 to 4,000 people come out, and then the next year had almost 5,000 people come out. And then the next years we had 65-mile-an-hour gale force winds 2 years in a row.
Jeez.
So we still had hundreds, still had like maybe 500. We had a lot of churn because people couldn't hack it for very long because it was some tough going. But it was always about the same thing that this was about, that we had the day, well, it was a little different. The day after the massacre. And, people were wondering, should we still have it? And it was like, of course we have to have it. And we have to have it in solidarity.
So
and for healing. So it was actually called, and we've been planning it for months. It was the Women's March. It was Victorious Women's Month in May. And that's why Deidre picked having it in May. I would have never done that because it's too close to my name. It would be too embarrassing. But May is much better than January or even March. So, so we planned it with the weather. So
Absolutely.
we had it permit. And it was the Women's March for Solidarity, Victory, and Healing. And then I didn't need to tell anybody, when we had it, it was all about what happened the previous day.
Absolutely.
It didn't matter if we had a person from Starbucks who was already scheduled to speak. Well, they spoke about everyone spoke about the tragedy and the solidarity and the victory that we need. The victory that we need is the end of the white supremacy, the racism, and the patriarchy, and all the other forms of oppression and domination. I think of Agnes Williams a lot. I've learned a lot from Agnes, who is also a social worker, and is Seneca. And she talks about all forms of oppression, against all forms of oppression, all forms of domination. And certainly indigenous people and black people have had it. They have had all those, and then they've had it for centuries. So we cannot, it's back to what you said. We all suffer for that. The people who think they're gaining or benefiting, they're not. And they will pay in the end. And, the chickens come home to roost. They do. They just do. You don't have to. It's nothing mean about it. It's just a fact. You know what? You know, we plant the seeds for the things that will happen next.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the proposed, or at least there's a proposed Poor People's March in June on the Capitol in Washington, D.C.? Do you... That's another...
Actually, so that's another thing. So solidarity is easy, simple but not easy. Simple but not easy. So we said respect, learning, appreciating all the cultures, and and down with all forms of domination and oppression and violence, right?
Yeah.
That's the first thing. But so we love the Poor People's Campaign because they do what we do, and we've been doing it forever. I mean, our mission statement is peace through justice at home and abroad, and so and the Western Europe Peace Center was started as part of Dr. King's Clergy and Laity Concerned. So it's in our DNA to be talking about how all of our issues are connected, and what he called the triple evils of racism or bigotry, war and violence, right? And predatory capitalism or you know, materialism. And then what they've added to that is environmental degradation, right? And also nationalism, or religious nationalism. Now, we're all in favor of that, and you know, I think Reverend Barber is great, and all of their points are wonderful. The problem is for us in Buffalo, it's back to that think globally, act locally, because that is Juneteenth weekend. We have the biggest Juneteenth. Right? Yes. So I was talking with our local, you know, we've been involved, less so lately, but just because it's sort of you know, we've lost some steam, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, why the Poor People's Campaign has lost some steam. But the principles are great, and the desire is great, and so we'd love to support it. But the problem is that they, you know, as one of the either the second or third biggest Juneteenth in the country, and especially after the Black community has been just rocked. I mean, I myself feel flattened, so I can't even imagine how the people more directly impacted feel. It's just such a trauma. People are angry. People are so upset. So that Juneteenth is going to be really important, and that's the
same weekend.
That's the same weekend. Oh. So that's just, and I actually was talking with them, and I said, well, there was no one asked you, you know, right?
Yeah.
What you thought, or there wasn't, because the thing about planning, it's hard, and there's no perfect time for doing anything. But, you know, if the more you involve other people, the longer everything takes to do. So this is why, you know, sometimes a lot of decisions just sort of get made at another level, and then they're just made. But if they're not made with the communities that are involved, then they might not be as good a decision as they would be, because that is not a good time for this community to try and go to Washington.
Yeah.
So we're not really thinking about what I'd like to see, and we can try and do, is if there was some way of, you know, doing a solidarity thing, or, you know, and I think that I really, if, you know, I'll talk with Holly Nowak, because CEJ, Coalition for Economic Justice, has really taken the lead. You know, we've been involved, even actually Kelly Kowalski of Food for All was the first one to bring the Poor People's Campaign here to Buffalo. And so we have had it here for years, and we've certainly been supporting it, or, you know, somewhat involved, but it's more devolved to mostly being CEJ doing it lately.
Yeah.
So we'll talk with them about whether we can do some kind of a solidarity thing, or some kind of a shout out type thing to link them in some kind of way.
Well, maybe you could even have some aspect of it at the Juneteenth.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, well, maybe they care what we're doing in Buffalo, especially after we've we've gotten in the national news too much lately, I want to say, and all with a lot of pain. I mean, Buffalo has really been brutalized. That's what I see. And this last thing was just the latest, biggest thing. There were a lot of other, it was a painful election cycle, very painful. I think I can just say that. And so and Buffalo, we're the sixth most segregated city in the country. We are the second poorest, and we're or third poorest maybe, and we have the second poorest in terms of our children's poverty. That we have more poor children than next to the most of any city anywhere in the country.
Yep. My mom comes from New York City, and she tells me all the time, she's like, I didn't get it when I came here from New York City, because she's like, in New York City, we're all different types of people together, and we're all poor, we're all in the same boat, so that's, how we treat each other, we're all just neighbors. And she was like, so coming to Buffalo was such a different experience, and now my mom teaches in Buffalo Public, and so she's a bilingual special ed teacher, and
Which
so
school?
She's at Frank Sedita. Hi, Mom. Shout out, Mom.
Yay, Mom.
Hey, all right.
She's amazing. And so she's really had to do a deep dive into racial education, and she's uncovering all these facts about how kids of color get suspended at higher rates.
We know that.
And they're viewed as older than they are. Yeah.
That has been known. We've been working on that for how many years? I want to say, since I moved to Buffalo. And I moved to Buffalo in 2007, and I started working with the Peace Center in 2008. So since then, and I remember Citizen Action, I was sitting in with Brian Trezak, and we're getting all these reports that show that children of color are getting suspended at higher rates and all of that. This is not new. This is not new. This has been going on.
Yep.
And as far as the city of good neighbors, this is what I keep saying. Well, if your neighbors, my neighbors are white in Buffalo. Are your neighbors of color?
Yes.
Yes. How surprising. So if we call ourselves the city of good neighbors, what are we really saying? Let's just be real about what we're really saying. Yes, the murderer came from some other, from 3 hours away. Doesn't change the fact that we have the second most number of arrests over January 6th of any county in the country. The second most.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That
so
sounds
we have
surprising.
our own white supremacy here.
Yep.
We have plenty of it. We have it. They've been, we have it. We have it.
Yeah, I think that's what's troubling for me, is that we've known these facts for so long, but we're still in a place where we're having these conversations with folks, and there's just this blatant disregard for facts that's really been popping up with some of those folks, where we're treating facts like they're opinions and they're not, and just the fact that we're basically being racially gaslighted is what I heard when I was at the vigil for Jefferson. And yeah, we're just being racially gaslit. We're being told that our facts about racism, these facts that black and brown kids get suspended higher because they're often viewed as being older.
By who? Who's doing the gaslighting? That's
the alt-right and some of these thinkers, these Trump supporters that we've seen.
Right.
Yeah, just the denial of actual facts. And so I think that's what's so troubling as an organizer in this day and age, is just how do we break through that wall of just, I live in this bubble, I'm taking my information from where I'm getting it, and no study is going to change my mind.
Well, it is a terrible state of affairs, and education has to be a piece of it. But there are some other things that just, I love Cornel West, and I do.
I do.
And one of his response. Well, first of all, I think about, we were just talking about unarmed truth and unconditional love. So there is truth, and yes, sometimes there's different conflicting or paradoxical truths, so we can handle that, we can hear that, but there's actual facts, right? And those need to be addressed as facts. So the journalism can do a lot of to help with that investigative reporting. If it wasn't just it bleeds, it leads, and you get 90 seconds, that's one thing. But what I was going to say with Cornell, what Cornell says, what his prescription for what we need, moral integrity and universal solidarity. So the first is to start with moral integrity. So, be honest about, what are the facts. And that until we get that, we're not going to get very far with people who are just pretending that things are a different way than what they are. And so we just need to keep coming out with the truth and the matter of the facts.
Yep.
The actual facts. And the courage. And what I've been saying is we need to stop business as usual.
Yep.
Business as usual is not our friend.
Yep.
Because people are because it's hard, because the changes we're talking about are deep and pervasive. So they're deep and they're wide. So that's a lot. That's a lot to do.
Yeah, but a lot of people find that threatening, that they need to change. And who are all these shooters? I haven't seen a woman shooter yet.
Well, of course, right.
They're all young men who are insecure, I think. I mean,
Oh, absolutely they are. And they're I got to say it, testosterone poisoning, and their hormones, right? They're 18 and the judgment is not there. The idea that these people can buy assault weapons is insane. Oh my God. So we're going to have a show about gun
control.
Gun
You need
control.
one. You really need
Absolutely. And on we've had shows about white supremacy and racism and things, but we'll have more, and definitely have to have more. We are getting on the side of towards, we have about, let's say 5 or a little more than 5 minutes left. But if we just think about, we always like to end up with how people can get more involved. And I want to say in Latin American solidarity or in just solidarity, because one of the things I want to say is that the people who have solidarity for other Latin American countries and peoples also have the solidarity. And that's why we're talking about what's going on in our city. And around us. So solidarity, for all of the issues.
Well, I'd like to talk about the Latin American Solidarity Committee's monthly coffee houses where we feature a different country every month. It's always on the fourth Sunday of the month.
Fourth Monday.
Fourth Monday, that's right.
Yep.
The fourth Monday of the month, and it has recently, for the last 2 years at any rate, been at the Canisius College Science Hall.
Yeah.
And that is a place where you can learn about all the countries in Latin America. We'll have one on We'll have one on Puerto Rico. We'll have one on Mexico. We'll have one on Honduras. We just had last month it was on Honduras. Sometimes we have South American countries.
Cuba.
And you can come to that and just get an idea of what we do and how we do it. If you want to get more involved, you can get involved as much as you want. You can make it your whole life if you want to.
There you go. Oh,
good. You could, but really, it is the best place to learn about Latin America in Buffalo, New York.
Plus
because if you follow the local newspaper, you'll be lucky if you find an article on Latin America in the whole week. You'll be lucky if there's one article.
Right.
Whereas we give in-depth 1 hour to 2 hour presentations where you really learn about a country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if you really want to get active, you want to learn where to start, come join us, and you can branch off in 100 different directions.
Right.
And we will support you in your particular interests.
Right. That's what I've
We have people some people in our group want to close Guantanamo.
Right.
Other people want to do other things. I want to run a dental clinic, help run a dental clinic in Chiapas.
Yes.
And so we support people. Other people want to help the friend shipments that go to Cuba.
Right.
And they throw a whole party around that, and they help Pastors for Peace go to
Right.
Cuba,
Yep.
and they take other people. We also support people that want to go to Cuba and learn about Cuban culture.
Sure.
So,
Right. Speaking as one
if
who
you
did.
if you could come to one of our coffee houses, I think you'd really enjoy it, and you can get as involved as you
yes.
want.
Yes.
It's a way to start changing the world for the better.
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah,
We need it.
amen. Alhamdulillah. And so, what are some ways too that you would say?
Absolutely. So I would say if you're watching this on Facebook, come out to the El Buen Amigo fundraiser on Saturday, May 28th. I will be the
Right.
MC, so you get to hear from me some more.
Ooh, oh, good.
If you're listening to this on the radio on Monday, then you can come out to the El Buen Amigo mural planning meetings. They're supposed to be bi-weekly, but I'll be honest, we're there every Saturday at 2 o'clock with Santiago,
Oh, good.
probably snacking on something and figuring out what we're going to do next to make this mural happen. I'm personally really dedicated in this moment to making sure we're telling the Afro-Latino perspective in these murals as well, making
Right.
sure that, we are paying honor to the people of color that are Latinos. We come in all different shades.
Yes.
And also, I guess I would like to ask folks, anyone who's listening, how are you going to take what you're good at in this moment and apply it to supporting the Black community, especially those affected by the shooting at Tops on Jefferson? That's something that everybody should be doing all the time.
Yes.
Figuring out how you can use the things of privilege that you have and applying them to communities that are facing oppression today.
Yes.
And also, I'm a community organizer at Citizen Action. So if anybody
That's
ever wants to
another
hit me
place.
up to get involved with
Right.
our committees, we got a climate committee, a demand justice committee, which works on ending mass incarceration. We've got our education/childcare committee that's trying to pass universal childcare for New York
Oh,
State.
yes. We're active in
man.
that too.
Yep. So
Great. Yeah.
Kay Camacho at citizenactionny.org. That's how you can contact me. I'll get you involved.
Right. Wonderful. That'll
Super.
be great. Yep. So there's no shortage of ways that people can
None.
get involved. Well, I'm going to say I'm very grateful to both of you for all the work that you do all the time, for all the things that you are, and for all the wisdom and spirit that you share coming here today. And so this is talking. I can't thank you enough. So muchas gracias, millón de
Muchas
gracias.
gracias.
Siempre.
Qué bueno, qué
No,
bueno.
sí. This is Talking Peace, and together we are talking peace in truth and love. That's it. Yay.
There you go. We're not rich, but we'll be famous.